Hello and welcome to Tuesdays with Entegra Coach. I'm PJ Clanton, and today we're going to be discussing your proper setup and teardown of your motorhome. So it's important we follow some steps, and just some simple steps that we're going to give you as you're setting up your coach and as you tear down your coach. There are just a couple steps that we want to make sure you're following, just to make sure that we keep everything square, we keep everything where it needs to be in the positions it needs to be in while we're operating some certain things on the coach. So number one is we're going to position your coach in your sight, whether you're backing in, pulling in, it doesn't matter. Let's get that positioned in its sight. Then you're going to make sure that your front tires are completely straight. That is very, very important. When we run the leveling system and it dumps the air out of the suspension, that coach is going to drop down, and it could drop down on top of those wheels. So we want those tires to be completely straight in the front. Next thing is we're going to be needing to turn that ignition off and get that so that the coach, the actual engine is powered down. We can't run our jacks without having the engine turned off. So we're going to do that. Next thing, simple for you guys, it kind of makes a lot of sense, is go out and plug everything in. Plug in your short cord. Again, make sure your breaker is turned off before you plug that short cord in. We obviously want to recommend that you're using an external surge guard as well. So plug that breaker off and then plug the coach in, turn that breaker back on, and then you get power in your coach. Hook up other things, water connections, sewer connections, any kind of satellite dishes you have or anything. It's just a lot simpler to do that now before the slide outs are out, and that will save you a lot of headaches in the long run. So just a good tip to do that there. Next thing is we can go in and run our slide outs out. So we want to make sure that we're at ride height, and that's kind of why we're backing into that sight, we're pulling into that sight, and we're making sure things are clear, and that gives us time to air that coach back up and make sure that it's really at ride height, because that's when we want to run our slide outs in our Entegra Coach. And so we run our slide outs out. We're going to run those one at a time. We get all 4 slide outs out, and now we're ready to level that coach. So it's kind of a different process than some of you may be used to, but this is the actual process for an Entegra Coach diesel pusher product. And what you want to do is get those slide outs out first, then we're going to level the coach. Now the process of leveling the coach is very simple. Turn on your hydraulic leveling panel, hit the auto level button, and the coach will level itself. We preset that from the factory. We preset that 0-point level set. And the one thing to remember is while you're doing that process, you need to be very, very still inside that coach. Only reason is because we have a very sensitive sensor in the basement, and in the newer coaches, it's going to be in the front driver's side fender on that controller. That sensor is actually built into that controller. So any movement that thing sees will kind of throw that off a little bit where we're not achieving level. So we want to make sure that we are very still in the coach. You've got about 1 minute and 45 seconds it takes to level that coach. If you guys can't sit still for 1 minute and 45 seconds, I get it. I understand it. You can go ahead and hit auto level, and then you can walk out of the coach. You've got 18 seconds before that actually starts to sense the movement of the coach. So 18 seconds should be plenty of time for you to get out the door. Let it do its thing. Again, it takes less than 2 minutes for the coach to level, and then you'll be all set. Now, you've been set up for a while. Maybe you've been there for a week. Maybe you've been there for 2 months, whatever the case is. Now it's time that you're ready to leave, and we've got to talk about how we pack up and how we get everything where it needs to be, and we get back to that ride height where we can pull out of that campsite and not have any issues. So first thing is, again, stow all of your awnings on the roofs, store all of your antennas, make sure those are down, the awnings. And the reason we're doing that is because once you turn the ignition on, those won't come in while you're doing this process. You'll have to turn the key back off, which is no big deal. You forget to do that, no big deal. We can turn the key off, and we can run those awnings in, we can run those antennas down. But we do have an ignition lockout on those, so those will not operate while the key is on. So just remember that. Second thing we're going to do is start the engine. So this is important because we're building that air pressure back up. Again, that air pressure is vital to running our slide outs in and out. So we're going to start the engine. We're going to put it up on high idle. Hopefully we all understand how to do that. Simply turn your cruise control on. You can press the resume button and it will take it up, and you can press and hold that resume button and it will take it up even further. Now there is a limit to it, so you can't go crazy, and I'm sure that a lot of people don't want to hear that engine just roar up. It's not really probably the best thing for it to put it up as maximum high idle as it will go, but we can just bump it up a little bit, get it to right about 1,000 RPM. That increases the air pressure. So what that does is that'll get you the air pressure faster. The reason it's so important to have that air pressure, now we're talking in the tank, so you're in your primary and secondary tank. The reason it's so important is because when we lift the jacks up off the ground, that triggers the dump valve that allows the air suspension to air back up. If we don't have that air pressure in the tanks, we're not going to get that proper air up, and then we will never achieve that ride height or maintain ride height if we take off in that fashion. And we're not completely closed on that dump valve, we're not going to be able to maintain ride height as we're going down the road. So start the engine, get it to high idle. Now we're ready to hit all retract. So you hit all retract on your hydraulic leveling system. Just turn the power on. It's usually going to be on, but it'll go to sleep. So if you've been there a while, the panel is going to be kind of turned off. You can do this off of the hydraulic leveling panel, depending on your year, on the left-hand side of the dash, or you can do it right on the center console. On our newer product, it's right there built into the center console and that center screen. So we're going to hit all retract. What that's going to do is bring the jacks up. Now it's going to be odd because those jacks are going to start coming up, and you're going to feel your coach kind of go down in the front end, especially if you're sitting in the driver and passenger seat. You're going to go, wait a second, I'm supposed to be airing this up. Why are we dropping? So what's happening is the jacks are coming off the ground faster than the air is building in the airbags. So you are going to feel a little bit of a dip, and then it's going to come right back up. Now, if you've been sitting there for a while, understand you're going to have some water dripping off your roof probably. That's just where we have residual water from any dew or any air conditioners that have spilled over onto the roof with any condensation or anything. Or if it's been raining there, you're going to have a little bit of water that's going to kind of flow off that front end, kind of drip down by the driver's side window or come down by the entry door. No big deal. That's going to be normal in this situation. So we're going to retract all those jacks. Now, the coach is going to come back up to air ride height. So we keep saying this ride height. That's so important to be at ride height. So the actual physical suspension measurement as you are driving down the road. That is very important to have that achieved before we move on to the next step. So we retract the jacks. It's coming up to ride height. How do we know our coach is at ride height? Well, for the newer coaches that we have, we'll say newer, let's say you have a 2025, it's pretty simple. There's a light right inside your gauges on the top right-hand side. It says not at ride height. Now, if you're one of our longtime family members and have a older coach, and not going to put an age on that, I don't want to offend anybody, but if you have an older coach, an earlier coach that we've built, you're not going to have that light in the dash. So you have to physically go outside and make sure that ride height has been achieved. Now, how do we tell that ride height is achieved? It's simple. If you go out to your front tires, you go to your back tires, you're looking at the clearance between the top of the tire and the wheel well. So we should really be able to stick our hand in between that area. So we're going to stick our hand inside there. And you should also be able to make a fist on top of the tire and not touch the bottom of the floor. That is how you know you're going to be at ride height. So just simple test. If you don't have the light in the dash that tells you you're not at ride height, that will go away. You need to go outside, simply put your hand on top of the tire, make a fist on top of the tire, and that is if your clearance is there and you're not touching the bottom of the floor, you are at ride height and can continue on to your next step. So the next step is going to be retracting all of your slides. Again, we're going to run our slide outs one at a time. You can do that from the front overhead in your coach. You can do that from the Firefly screen that's mounted mid of your coach. You can do that off the app on your phone if you've got the Firefly app on your phone. Several ways we can do that, but we want to run each one of those slide outs in. Once they're all the way in and we've got all those slides in, now we can easily go around and disconnect all of our power cords, all of our sewer hookups, any of our fresh water, anything you have outside, maybe that yard dish or a Starlink yard dish that you have outside. We can now take that stuff and store it in the basement where it needs to go without having to crawl down underneath that slide out. Reduces the risk of bumping our noggin when we get underneath there and try to put something away. I'm sure many of you have done that. I've done that myself. So be very, very careful about that. Now, once we unplug that coach, we want to make sure that the breaker is off before we unplug the coach. And then we're going to store that shore cord. Once we've done that, before you guys leave, it is important, and I know we've already closed the slide out. Some of you do this before, but it's always best practice to kind of go through that coach again, make sure that we have everything locked, make sure we have our refrigerator doors locked, make sure we have the dishwasher locked, make sure all the cabinet doors are closed, make sure our pocket doors are inside the walls where they need to be and that is open, you know. Just those little things. We want to make sure that everything is stored properly and everything is secured before we take off. Now, slide outs are in, everything's unhooked. Do one final walk around of your coach, and then it is safe to leave your site and carry on to your next destination. I hope this has been helpful, and we'll see you the next time on Tuesdays with Entegra Coach.